welcome back to this room. We should begin after next session. Are you ready? Okay, yeah. So the theme of session B is ongoing climate change, mobilizing institutions and individuals. And we are fortunate to have 4 groups of contributors to this issue from different parts of the world, including UK, Italy, and Norway, and United States. The first presentation, I will remind you, we have 15 minutes for each presentation, including question and preparation and withdrawal, okay? I will show you this. So first presentation will be by Nicola skipper, Nicola? Oh yeah, sorry. And Sally Collins, yeah, from the Sedgwick Museum of Earth Science, United Kingdom. This is their joint research with Robert Joseph THEODORE, okay? And the presentation title is, Can the Sedgwick Museum of Earth Science, University of Cambridge, support public understanding of climate change and inspire action? So please welcome.
Thank you. So a little bit about the museum. Oh, yeah. I can shout. Hello. So a little bit about the Sedgwick Museum of Earth Sciences. We are an embedded museum in the Earth Science Department at Cambridge University. We're quite small. We have about 90,000 visitors a year. And the collection dates back to the 1700s. The building we're in was opened in 1904. And you'll see from pictures, we still have a lot of those original cases from the late 1800s, early 1900s. So my role as an educator, I became aware that students and teachers wanted support in tackling climate change topics. So my goal for this project was to work with a local secondary school and to get young people to meet real-world climate scientists and to support those scientists in talking about their science to non-scientists. We could use the whole gallery creatively. And at the start of the project, I had no idea what it was going to be, only that it was going to come from the young people and be their voices and their concerns. We worked with Parkside Community College with a core of 11 young people, aged from 11 to 16. It ran from November last year to April this year, with sessions after school on Fridays. As you can see, the program covered a lot of things. We talked about the history of collecting climate data, looking at climate change in the deep time fossil record. We met scientists from across the university, Earth Science Department, Zoology, the Polar Museum, Chemistry. They talked to us about ice cores, ocean data, modeling climate science, how to talk about climate change, and about how local butterflies in Cambridge can tell us about climate change as well, can be indicators for climate change. They also worked with Rob THEODORE at the museum, he's online today, about how to write text for a museum audience. So these are their words. They wanted our visitors to recognize what they felt about climate change. This is an art installation, it's not a science piece. And that was a choice. They were really, really inspired by the butterflies. That's, out of all of the research, that's what connected with them the most. And there were also themes of extinction, protest, and hope for the future that they wanted this installation to encompass. We work with a wonderful artist, Hilary Cox-Condron, who is a climate activist as well. So she was the brilliant person to bring out from the young people what this exhibition installation was going to be and Rob worked with them on what their voice was going to be in their writing. It was a fantastic opportunity for science to inspire art, and for this intervention to start conversations with visitors in a way that's different to a panel about climate science. It's not always clear how long visitors spend reading panels, so this was intended to be different and to spark curiosity. There are 3 panels. So the first one is a little bit of text written by me about what visitors will find in the exhibition, in the installation. The first one, butterflies are our alarm bells, don't press snooze, press stop. That was their words, and that's their panel. They worked with Rob on different levels of text and their voice. And we have a little bit of science, one panel talking about mass extinctions and what they are, and how we see them in the fossil record. Our gallery is laid out in order of time, so it really lends itself to marking those extinction events. So what you'll see, if you come into the museum, is this kaleidoscope of paper butterflies, hundreds and hundreds of paper butterflies. They're on the walls, they're on the top of the cabinets. The colourful ones represent flourishing life, and you'll just see in the background on the right-hand slide, the dark butterflies, the ghost butterflies and the dark butterflies. Those are the ones that represent those extinction events. So they're in 5 places throughout the museum. And you'll see that our posters, our text panels, they're all on cardboard. We did whatever we could to not buy anything new and to recycle things in the project as well. There are cardboard protest banners around the museum. Some of them are their own words, some of them are repeating words that the young people that really resonated with them. They felt really strongly that they wanted to protest about the damage that is being done to our planet. And so this really represents their voices. This large one up here, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, but the most adaptable to change. It sounds like Darwin, but it isn't. It's actually up there next to our Darwin bust. It's a misquote. They know that. They chose it because they like the words, and they liked being a little bit controversial of having it up there next to Darwin. We have a little QR code in the case underneath that explains where that misquote came from.
Thank you, Nick. So we hosted a celebratory launch event for the installation with the young people's families, friends and teachers invited. We invited the Department of Earth Sciences at the university and also the scientists who were involved in the project. We really wanted to impress upon the students just how much we valued their work. Interestingly, other young people from the school came along as they'd heard about the installation from their friends. And also we had students from the school who weren't involved in the project turning up on Saturdays because they wanted to see what they've been hearing about. The students were a joy to work with every week. And one unexpected outcome of the project was how comfortable and at home they felt in the museum. At the launch, one mum said to me that she was really surprised one Saturday when her son said to her, I'm going to do some sketching in the museum. And we also were delighted to see the way the students at the launch decided they were just going to do an impromptu guided tour for their head teacher around the space. We felt that they had an ownership of the space and they felt very at home in the space and they wanted to share it with their head teacher. So the University of Cambridge communications team wrote a press release about the project. And interestingly and very encouragingly, this positive news story was widely published. These are the BBC and independent pieces. And note that they focus on the students' wish to spark a conversation about climate change. A quick Google search at the time showed the wide geographic reach and range of the interested news outlets. such as Yahoo News New Zealand, the Irish News, Energy Industry News, a surfing website, local news all around the UK. And it was really heartening that we got this response from the media. It was consistently positive. And the fact that the young people's wish to start a conversation about climate change was the focus, and their voices were now being heard around the world, beyond the walls of the museum. And we hope this consistently positive response from the media might be useful in encouraging to other museums who might be considering new youth climate programs. A local museum, Ely Museum, has featured the installation in their own exhibition called Back to Nature, and it champions environmental initiatives taking place across the region, and it even included an activity where visitors could make their own paper butterfly to add to their display. So the legacy of the project in the museum, in the Sedgwick Museum, we've developed a range of family activities to complement the project in the school holidays, and one was the creation of a butterfly wall, which you can see on the left. We've got QR codes on the wall which link to opportunities to take positive action to protect local invertebrates. So links to campaigns such as the Big Butterfly Count in the UK, and also the UK's No Mow May. Visitors can just drop in and make a butterfly, write a pledge on it, stating what action they take, and add it to the wall. And all the paper was recycled. Other legacies are to further support secondary schools. During our teacher consultation, teachers told us they want to bring their students into contact with climate scientists. So we plan to do this again in a range of ways, in person, online, and possibly using video as well. So these biographies on the screen were created during the project and will be available on our website. And also, with the unexpected outcome of the students feeling quite so at home in the museum through regular visiting, we will run an informal after-school club. And as well as environmental themes, we're going to focus on those students' well-being, their personal development, skills development, and support, if they want it, with their studies at school.
So did we answer the question? Can we support public understanding of climate change and inspire action? I think the butterfly wall shows that we do. People are constantly adding to that. They're pledges of things I will do, which is really lovely to see. And these here are snippets of conversations where members of the public have gone and found a museum member of staff to talk to them. The installation has inspired them to come and have a conversation with our staff. Most of them are positive, but not all of them. And this is only the start of a long-term project that's going to include, or has included, embedding sustainability and climate change in the museum's strategic plan and supporting staff well-being on having these difficult conversations around climate in the museum. Like Sally said, it's been an absolute pleasure working with these young people. I've learned an awful lot about making an installation in the museum, and I'm really excited about how the museum has a commitment to be a space where we can continue to hold these difficult conversations about climate change. Thank you.
We will have the time of question after the end of this session. So let's move to next speaker. Next speaker is Chiara PARISI. from Italy, a Museum of Paleontology and Prehistory, P. Leonardi. She's a doctoral student at the University of Ferrara, and she actually visited my museum last year, so I know her well. And I'm very happy to see her here again. Her presentation must be part of her study of PhD. The title will be Dealing with Eco and Security and Climate Change Consciousness through Paleontological and Prehistoric Collections. So please welcome.
Work? Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm very thrilled to be here at my first NETIS conference. And today I will introduce you to a pilot project that I carried out in my museum. It is part of my PhD activities. And I developed this project in collaboration with my colleagues, Lucilla Angeletti, Lavinia Caffarelli, and our director, Ursula Thun. So this project focused on dealing with eco-anxiety through paleoanthropological collection. But let's start from a question. What is eco-anxiety? Well, this is a very complex term and not yet well defined, but we can simply say that it is that form of anxiety related to the concern about climate change and environmental degradation. But psychiatric and psychological studies identify a key difference compared to the typical form of anxiety. Normally, anxiety arises from irrational fears, while eco-anxiety arises from rational and scientifically based concern. So this can generate a very mix of emotion from fear, sadness, anger, a sense of helplessness. Sorry for the mistakes on the slide. And this emotion generates from the awareness that environmental changes are real and upcoming, but human resources and capabilities to solve them seem to be limited. So we can have two different responses to eco-anxiety. From one side, I may feel proactive, pro-environmental behavior in an attempt to do my part, but from the other side, I also may feel paralyzed in facing the enormity of environmental changes, with also the common idea that individual action are not enough to achieve global results. So this duality is the most complex aspect of eco-anxiety. This is a growing phenomenon that is present all over the world and affects every age range, but it seems to me more effective, more common in younger people, probably after COVID-19 especially, which intensified the concern about a larger scale crisis. So in order to respond to this growing phenomena and also a gap in the literature for my country, because this topic is not yet well investigated, especially in the museum, we decided to revise one of the most popular educational pathways of our museum that focus on human evolution, create a connection between the paleoanthropological collection and social environmental issues. So we generally address these pathways to elementary and middle school children, also because as Paleontological Museum is our first category of target. But in this case, we decided to address this project to high school students, and in order to deal with the sensitive issues, go into more detail and discuss in more analytical and critical way. But normally, museums tend not to stress a lot of negative impact of climate change in order to avoid anxiety and discomfort in the public. But our approach aims to be a little bit different and create a balance between anxiety and an awareness of the big environmental problem that we are facing, but especially an awareness of the individual, the power of the individual action to achieve global results. With the final aims also to inspire a pro-environmental behavior. So the method used was a storytelling collection base that linked to topical issues. We start from the earliest ancestor of human and retrace the journey of human evolution, topic and specific point to discuss with students of some topical issues. Very quickly, for example, we present the collection of Paranthropus and talk of its extinction, and so draw the attention to how is the changing to adapt to environmental changes, and how the speed of climate change is changing because of the human impact. And also, for example, for human migration, we compare the difference between the past migration, I mean past in prehistory, and the modern migration, and reflect on this difference with the student is very important, because if in prehistory we have a migration that are driven mainly by environmental pressures, in modern migration, we are mainly social factors, such as political instability, search for better opportunity, and so on. So reflecting on this with students is most important in order to inspire all of the students to approach, especially the topic of migration, with a more sustainable and human rights respectful approach, especially because in the city of Ferrara, we have a lot of multi-ethnic classes. Of course, the key point of the method that we want to use is the comparison between negative impact of human, but also balanced by concrete positive example, in order to try to use the power of emotion, also negative emotion and empathy, to reinforce the message and drive the student, to motivate the student to take a concrete action and show how everyday decision can make the difference. We have the possibility to test this project with 3 classes of the Human Science High School of the city of Ferrara, with a total of 41 participants. After the educational pathways, we submitted to the student a questionnaire that aims to evaluate whether they suffer from eco-anxiety, what is their perception of nature, and so the relationship in the environment between nature and human, and whether if the method they used was really effective to inspire pro-environmental behavior. So one of the first questions is about how much are you worried about the future of environment and natural resource. We have the majority of students that say quite worried, and in my opinion, a huge percentage of students that declare to be neutral on the topic. A second question aims to evaluate if the educational project have helped to reduce their eco-anxiety, with the aim to indirectly obtain the data if they suffer from eco-anxiety without asking them directly. And from this question, we saw that the 68% suffer from eco-anxiety, so the majority, against 32% who does not. This is the most important question. This is about the perception of a natural environment by the student. So this question allows us to identify if prevails a more anthropocentric or ecocentric view. We have different categories. Fortunately, we have a low percentage of anthropocentric view. There are only 4 students, even if 4 on 41 is not so low. And then we have another huge percentage that fit in the category of transitional view between anthropocentric and ecocentric, so in which nature is seen in a more utilitaristic way. I have to take care of the nature because for survive, I need the nature. And then we have the majority of students, fortunately, that fit in the last category, assimilation with the nature, that according to the data literature is the one in which the awareness experience and this kind of educational activities are more effective. This question allows multiple choice. So students can choose more than one perception, and this yielded a mixed results, but reflect also the complexity of the perception of environmental in the student, and also that their eco-identity is still developing. Indeed, we have only 17 students that fit in only one, that choose only one perception, and they also are older in age. The last two results are about if the activity has really influenced the will to adopt a more sustainable behavior. And the results, even if are preliminary, are really encouraging, because we have almost the total with the 94% that declare that yes, the activity influenced their will to adopt more environmental behavior, and also a huge percentage that feel more informed and aware of environmental challenge. The only one that give a bad feedback on the project are the 4 students that fit in the anthropocentric category that we see before, and they are also the one that feel that say that we don't have nothing to worry about the future of the environment. So in conclusion, we see that the majority of students suffer from eco-anxiety, that the majority of students, even if tend to an ecocentric view, there is a significant variability and complexity in the answer. And so the eco-identity probably is not yet well defined. So for to the next step will be the revision of questionnaire in order to obtain more precise results in terms of eco-anxiety perception, and if we have a real effectiveness of a negative emotion, contrast by the example of concrete positive action to push individual to act more responsibly. Indeed, I decided to add 2 psychometric scales to evaluate better these parameters. The first is the pro-environmental behavior scale, and the second one is the PANA scale to evaluate the emotion. So I'm closing with a reminder for us all that small steps are the ones that make big impact, so our choice can shape our planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chiara. Okay. The next presenter is Einstein Markusson. He's a director of Svalbard Museum on the island of Svalbard in the high Arctic. He's a repeating contributor to ICOM-Nathist, actually. And he also gave a presentation in Costa Rica. And his knowledge in his museum is so extreme that all of you must be very impressed. So the title of his lecture will be A Challenging World, a new exhibition combining collections to display the dramatic climate change of the high Arctic. Please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's it. So thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me this chance. A changing world. The Arctic is always changing from season to season, but it's really a changing world. But I will have to give you a little bit of a background here, because giving the talk in Costa Rica really opened my eye, because the knowledge of the extreme species diverse Costa Rican jungle to the ecosystems I'm going to talk about is so different that I just have to give you a bit of background. And also, we are very different from many of you museums here. We're a small museum, but that aims to collect, preserve, disseminate, and work with research connected to natural and cultural history, environmental issues, and cultural heritage on Svalbard. So we do it all, not art, but the rest we do. With 14 members of staff, with 55,000 yearly guests. We've had 600,000 since 2006. And of course, we have to boast about being the world's northernmost ICOM member. So here you see some of our themes. Those are 2 polar bears eating a whale carcass with a glacier in the background. And we were actually doing field work, but we were not doing field work because the polar bears were there. So what is this thing called Svalbard? It is a Norwegian archipelago almost at the North Pole. The lightly blue circle there is the North Pole. The red arrow is the archipelago. It's between 74 and 82 degrees north. And France isn't even on the map. The United Kingdom is down there, is on the map. It's 61,000 square kilometers, 3,000 people. So not a lot, 2,600 in my community. So it's very different. It's as far as you can get on a commercial airliner. And it was discovered in 1596 by a Dutchman called Willem Barents. And it has no indigenous population. And that's also changes the picture quite dramatically from almost all other populated areas of the world. It's been mining. It still is mining, just a little bit. There's 140,000 tourists, and then there's research. From Sedgwick Museum, for instance. The natural environment, it's very often termed as a geological picture book because there are no trees. So you can really see the geology. And some of it you can see are fossils from 150 million years ago. There's 112 days of polar night, 125 days of midnight sun, 60% glaciers. There's permafrost, 2.5 months of growth season. And the Arctic ecosystems, as I started out mentioning, is an extremely simple one. The number of species, or simple is probably not the right word, but there are few species, but enormous numbers of the species that are there. So I already showed you the polar bear, but the polar bear is only possible due to the bloom of these Calonus glacialis, the copper poles living in the sea, which feeds of the enormous boom from all that light coming. And that's also lays the ground for the handsome bearded seal, and even the reindeer, because it's a marine-driven energy process. So very different from species-rich India, for instance, that we started out with today. So you probably know what I'm getting at. This is the temperature curves, the average curves for temperature increase until 2019. The last 3 summers, we've seen consecutive records in summer temperatures. So it's getting even worse as we speak. So the gray one is the global average. So what the Earth together is experiencing. The blue one is the general Arctic one, and the red one is Svalbard. Some places 5 to 6 times more dramatic than the rest of the world. It's like the canary in the mines. It's a warning sign. And what we're seeing is spring coming 13 days earlier just in 25 years. So when I first moved there, spring was 13 days later than we're seeing now. It has dramatic consequences on the ecosystems because they are highly dependent on ice. We see movement of ecosystems. The high Arctic ecosystems are moving north. And also the boreal ecosystems, particularly these are mostly marine, they're moving, they're coming north. So there are big changes, and of course it affects humans as well. So this is, okay, so how do we tell people about it? What do we do it? So we run a museum. And we're not very big, but we have a permanent exhibition of 800 square meters. It tells about the natural environment, human history, and should I say extractivism, which has been done. When it was discovered, they found it full of whales and animals, so they extracted it. It's a terrible story in many ways, but it's also an exciting story. As I said, 55,000 guests, majority of these tourists. They come from 81 different countries last year. So it's an extremely diverse group of guests. And most of the visitors are there on a nature-based journey. So there's probably no pointer here, is it? No? No. Okay. We'll try to make do. Is there a pointer? The green one, that moves. No, but I'll manage. Yeah. So here you see the plan of the exhibition. And now I have a manuscript. First of all, I would like to point out one basic feature, and that is that nature here is centered in the middle. And that has been that way from the former exhibition. It has cultural history in the surroundings of the exhibition, so that the cultural history interacts with nature. And it's also it's an important thing because almost all human activity has been based on nature extraction. So it's a natural way of doing it. However, the former exhibition did not have any mention of climate change. It was so old. So we wanted to change that and to talk about it. But it's a pretty grim story, and there's reason to have eco-exanity, as the former speaker talked about. So we want also to have the people marvel about the ecosystem and to learn about it, as the representative Slavo Spasek talked about earlier. It's an important thing to make people care about it. So if you look at the picture here, there are several installations and objects that are supposed to make the audience reflect upon climate change. First, the title itself, which is really clearly there, is an almost populistic claim to, well, that the world is changing. Inviting our guests to reflect on the process. We also ask them questions at the end of the exhibitions, and some are actually getting angry because we're asking, well, should there be tourism? Isn't tourism yet another extractivist activity? And we had a really angry one this year. Very early, we present simple facts, clearly showing an increase in temperature. It's nature. Secondly, we call this kind of an adapted diorama. It's like walking into a diorama, but you will see that there's glass where there should have been ocean. So it's an abstraction. So this is my term. I don't know if it's the correct one, but I like to use that. We have introduced interactive stations. So at the back there you see the mom with the kids and the folks jumping. There's a globe there, a sphere, where the guests are invited to touch that, and it will cause the glacier front to carve. I know that many glaciologists and scientists will find that extremely, almost naive, but still what we see is that the guests are they like it, and it has a very short message. The Earth is warming. 3? Does it say 3? Yeah. Also, the polar bear in the front here we use as one of the kind of he's the star of the exhibition anyway. So that's to make them marvel. The exhibits have not changed, but the context has. As I said, no one is ever objective, so we should embrace subjectivity. We use the iconic animals, but also use the geological history to raise awareness. The mass extinctions are mentioned frequently. This object here, and I am running out of time, but this is definitely not nature, or is it? It's wood, it's steel, it's fur, but it's very clearly not nature as well. It's a farmer's trapper's cabin. One part is Russian, dating back to 750. There's one part Norwegian from 1921. So what does it do in this presentation? The reason why it's sitting here is climate change. Because of the lack of sea ice, or the diminishing sea ice, coastal sea ice, causes extreme increase in coastal erosion. And it was supposed to be maintained, but it was almost taken by the ocean in just one winter season. Sorry, do you have the 1 minute now? So this is going back to the keynote this morning from Nicola Kramer. So what is this? This is climate change caused by human activity, most likely. But it also affects the cultural heritage of objects. Yeah, and then we won't have time to that. That's one of our reptiles that we animated. I can talk more about it, some of you if you want to. So this is the one. This is one thing that made the woman very angry. So thank you.
Thank you, Einstein. Last. Oh, okay. Okay, let's move to the last presenter. The presentation will be given by Richard Piacentini. Is it correct? Sorry. From Phipps Conservatory and Botanical Gardens in Pittsburgh, United States. The title is Working Together to Address Climate Change. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to speak with you today on the Climate Toolkit, which is a collaborative approach for museums, gardens, and zoos to address climate change. For context, our original conservatory opened in 1893. We're located in Pittsburgh, which is in the northeast part of the United States, and we were and still are one of the largest conservatories in the United States. It used to be that not too long ago, we could really just be focused on our collections and our research and our programs. But as many of us heard today, climate change is becoming a really critical issue that all of us need to start thinking about and we need to start addressing because it's not changing. Oh, there it is. Because climate change will spare no one. So it's absolutely critical that we make this be an important part of the discussion and things that we do. And we need to capitalize on the fact that in most of our communities, our museums are considered to be some of the most trusted organizations that there are. This presents us with a real leadership opportunity to lead our communities in addressing climate change. And it's really important for us to show that we matter and we can make a difference. The critical thing that I think I'd like to point out here is that in addition to just talking about climate change, it's actually critical that we also model behaviors that address climate change. And so the first question I usually hear when I talk to people about this, with our colleagues, whether they be United States or from other countries, they're like, well, what do we do? We have no idea where to start. How do we even think about addressing climate change? And the important thing for us to remember is that you're not alone. The fact of the matter is that there probably already is somebody that some other institution somewhere in the world is actually working on the type of problem that you're trying to address. So this is the reason why we started the Climate Toolkit, because it's an opportunity for gardens, museums, and zoos to share, mentor, and learn from each other, and to lead by example and inspire their members and visitors to address climate change. Right now, there are 194 institutions that have joined the Climate Toolkit. They're from 22 different countries, and collectively, they represent over 91 million visitors each year. We have also created partnerships with some national and international organizations, and I would love to have ICOM-Nathist join this list. We would love to partner with ICOM on this program as well. The toolkit is broken down into 9 major categories, and within those categories, there are 33 different goals. Now, these goals are not static. The intent here is that as more and more institutions join, and you start telling us about things that you think that are important and we need to address, we will add them to the list of goals for people to think about things that they could be doing. And it's really critical that we understand, and it's important for you to understand, that every institution is different, Every country is different. Every culture is different. Every bioregion is different. And there's no one way of, or right way of to do things. We don't expect everyone to do everything on the list. What we do expect everyone to do is to figure out what makes the most sense for you to be addressing based on who you are and what your institution, culture, country, etc. are like. This is a list of 70 of the institutions. Like I said, there's 194 institutions that have joined so far. And the idea is that it's very dynamic. It's, you know, you can press, once you're on the website, you press a picture and it'll actually pull up that institution and tell you all the things that they're doing. You can also sort by the various categories. So for example, if you are interested in addressing energy, if you want to figure out how do you reduce your use of fossil fuels, you click on the energy button, it'll start to pull up some examples of different institutions that are addressing energy. So here are 8 institutions, there's many more that are addressing energy. If you look at water, you can see that here are some of the institutions that are addressing water as a major issue. And I'm happy to say that the Garden of Plants in Nantes is actually one of the organizations that's part of the toolkit as well. Here are some organizations that are working on food service. We have other organizations that are working on solving waste issues. So here are some of the institutions that are working on landscapes and horticulture, looking at the biodiversity, the ecology around their institutions. We have some institutions that are interested in transportation, not only for how do their staff get to work, but how do their visitors get to visit the institution as well. And then some institutions are interested in investments. How can we make sure that we're not investing our funds in companies that are involved in fossil fuel extraction or other ESG issues? And we have a number of institutions that are interested in doing research specific to their particular institution's expertise, but also their particular bioregion, which is really critical as well. And then lastly, we have some organizations that are very focused on internal and external engagement. How do you engage your staff in caring about climate change? How do you get them excited about doing things in the museum to address climate change? How do you get your visitors interested? You heard some talks earlier today about how do we get how do we impact people, the visitors to our organizations? How do we get them interested in addressing climate change? So here are some institutions that are doing that as well. So the idea here is you can contact these institutions. Everyone who joins the toolkit agrees to share the information of what they're doing with other institutions. Right now, we're working on developing an opportunity to sort by bioregion so that you can find other organizations that are working in similar climates that you are to see what they're doing and see if it makes sense for you to do that as well. We've also just recently translated the toolkit into 17 different languages. Now, I'll say we're using artificial intelligence to do this. I don't know why they call it intelligence, because it's not always correct. But we're trying to actually, hopefully over time the translations will get better, but it is an effort to try and make this be more accessible to more people. The other critical thing here is, like I said, you can click on any of the icons, and it'll bring up information about what all these other institutions are doing. We also have developed a series of webinars, quarterly webinars. Here's the examples of some of the programs that have taken place so far. I'm really excited about the one on the top called Tools of Transformation. This is a series that we've developed to help people think about how do we switch from an extractive view of the world to a regenerative view of the world, where we start to see ourselves interconnected with everyone else and everything else on the planet and really explore those relationships. That's a really critical thing, because we're not going to solve the climate crisis with the same extractive viewpoints that got us into the crisis in the first place. We also have a number of different working groups that are addressing different areas of climate change. We also have resources and links to other organizations that you can explore as well. We have a blog and a listserv that will help answer questions in real time. And probably one of the most important things we're developing right now is a program to engage young people in helping them to address climate change. Now here we're not telling them what to do, but we recognize that this is one of the most critical issues that young people think about today. How can we support them into doing some of the things that they think are as important. You know, it's really critical that we think about this. Young people are our future visitors, they're our future members, they're our future donors. This is the most critical issue that many of them think about right now. And if we want to be relevant in the future, it's really important for us to show them that we're relevant to them now. So I think that's really critical. So with that in mind, we've also just started a Climate Toolkit Youth Network. We're just coming out of the pilot phase now, where we're engaging young people at different museums around the country and hopefully eventually around the world, where they can actually start to talk to each other about things that they're doing and do that through our museums. Again, making sure that people see our museums as being relevant to them. If you don't have a youth climate network right now or a youth group, we also will help you set one up. That's another critical thing that we're doing as well. So in closing, I'd like to say, you know, just to reflect back for a minute, you know, when I first got into the museum field, one of the things that really struck me was how much everybody cares about each other and how much everyone is willing to share with other people in other museums about things that they're doing. The Climate Toolkit is based on this idea of this camaraderie, so we can start sharing with each other and start thinking about how can we address climate change, how can we model ways to address climate change, which is actually more important than just talking about it. And I think it's really critical for us to remember that this is a real leadership opportunity for us. This is an opportunity for us to lead in our communities, and it's also an opportunity for us to help make sure that future generations actually have a future. So thank you very much. I hope you will think about joining us. Just go to climatetoolkit.org. It's very easy to sign up. You can sign up right on the website, and I hope that many of you will take advantage of that and help work with us and all these other institutions and really trying to make sure that we address climate change. So thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move to the time for question. So please come to the seat on the. Oh, yeah, you're okay. Okay, so, okay, so, any question? Okay, so.
Yeah, thank you very much for your contribution, your very committed work and the inspiring examples. Listening to them, I thought, so the world is fine because there are so many engaged people. But what I wanted to address when we talk about climate change, I also would like to talk about the changed political climate. So we are living in Europe and in the United States in a political situation where right-wing parties really gain ground, even fascist parties, and many people follow them and they completely deny climate change, or to cite the last, and hopefully not the future president of the United States, it's only weather. So I was wondering if you noticed in your work, working together with communities, if there is a change in the behavior of the people, how they react to your engagement, to your work, and how, if there is, how do you react to it?
It's a question for all contributors.
Now, that's a very good question. I think we've been getting a very positive response from people who come to the conservatory, and part of that is, I think, you know, if you look back, I think the environmental movement got started on the wrong foot, where we made people feel like if you wanted to do something that was right and sustainable, you had to give things up. You were going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be cold in the winter. You're going to be hot in the summer. Just get used to it. Nobody desires to be miserable, right? If we want people to change, we have to show them it's actually better. And that's one of the things we focus on at the conservatory. We have 3 zero-energy buildings. We show people how these are wonderful places to work in. We try to get people excited what a future really could look like, and it's actually better than what they have behind, than what they're leaving behind. So I think that's a really critical thing, is showing people that what we're talking about is actually better and getting them excited about that. And that's the way I think we need to, that's what I think we need to do to move forward.
Thanks for the interesting question, and very important, I think, because political have a huge role in this topic. And speaking for my country, in my personal opinion, we have a Minister of Education that said that study paleontology is completely a waste of time because you never use it in life. And we have a region in south of Italy that declares state of emergency from 2 years because we have no rain, with too hot weather for climate change, and political do nothing at all. So I think that museums really have a huge role, very important, to raise awareness of this topic and involve the community to raise awareness and take action to drive the change. But also in Italy, I saw that is a common situation, talking with other people of you, that natural history museums are always in the background, especially in a country as Italy that has very overwhelmed by cultural heritage. But everyone go to art or archaeological museum, but natural history is always seen as kids' museum. So I think that there is a huge contribution that we have to do also in change this perspective and let the people understand that this is a museum important for everybody and that we can really make it all very impactful contribute. Thank you.
I really wasn't aware of what our visitors thought about climate change because we don't talk about it openly in the collection, which was the reason for doing this project. But I was very aware that we needed to make sure that all of our staff were prepared on how to deal with difficult conversations. And that's something that is ongoing. It has been surprising. We have overwhelmingly positive conversations, but it is always very difficult for all of us when we are confronted with somebody who says, but it's not real. I have these conversations again and again with our front of house staff of how they're suddenly very shocked and don't know how to deal with it. So for us, we're mostly concentrating on how we support our staff to have those conversations. And it's been a really interesting introduction to seeing what our visitors' thoughts are on climate change as well.
Just to add to what Nick said there, it was mentioned earlier this morning that as museums, we're places where scientific literacy is at the fore. And we're very fortunate, and a lot of museums are, to have that research surrounding them. We're literally in an earth science research department. And as Richard said, we feel we can take a leadership role, especially as we've seen these discussions happen so well in our museum, and in our case it was really driven by these young people.
Well, our situation is very different because we have all these international tourists, and we don't have a right-wing government in Norway, but we are an oil-producing country which realizes climate change but still continues producing oil. So that's one thing. But what is a dilemma for us as a museum is that most of you will work with your regional audience and be able to have them come back again. That's not a possibility we have, but our dilemma is that all these people are starting to come to Svalbard and see the Arctic, which is it's not dying, but it's changing. It's last chance tourism is actually it's a topic, the last chance to see the Arctic, and it's kind of an ugly picture, and we don't know. We try to tell them what is happening, but that's what we can do.
Thank you very much. Next question. Okay. Excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to make an hypothesis. I think I have the feeling that in our society there is a strong techno-solutionism speeches on different things, especially on climate change, because of course there are some projects of geoengineering. And considering this, have you faced people saying, well, come on, they will find a solution, you know? Because this kind of discourse on climate change, we can find a solution with different technical solution. So in a sense, to me, it's a danger, because people think, okay, we can do nothing, and a solution will find. It's very strong in our society, because we are so used to have technical solution or the idea that we can manage everything, you know? Have you faced this kind of idea with people in your audience?
We do it with smaller groups and discussions on, well, should we be here? And we do it with the tourism industry, which basically, or not the industry, the people working in the industry, which is quite different from the industry itself. But we do it with them, and we have an awareness in our community that it's a very dynamic position to bring a lot of people with cruise ships and airliners to the Arctic to talk about the climate change, which is making the mudslides increase. So, and we are seeing some effects that are really detrimental. So, we do discussions on it. We cannot. It's hard to do it in the permanent exhibitions, but we are doing discussions on it.
Some of the discussions that we've had are not so much about the technology can save us, but because we're a museum with a fossil collection, that it's more, but the climate has always changed. So, you know, there were hippos in Cambridge, there were mammoths in Cambridge. The climate's always changed, so it doesn't matter that it's changing now. So those are more the conversations that we have with our visitors, that I have with our visitors. And it's about letting them know that it's the speed of change that is the problem. Yeah.
We certainly get some people who just think that science is going to solve the problem. But I think what we're finding more and more are many people want to do something. They care and they want to see something happen. You know, one thing, and this gets back to the earlier question too about politics. If you think about the fact that there's over 50,000 museums in the world, if all of us were working and demonstrating ways to address climate change, that's hundreds and hundreds of millions of people that we could be impacting every day. That you know, if we can start to mobilize them to start caring about climate change, that's one of the ways to get politics to change too, because you know, we're not going to solve the climate crisis with just all top-down solutions. We need a groundswell of support from the masses to say, the demand from our politicians that they start to do something. So I think there's an opportunity here to really sort of make some changes through our museums. And I forgot to say one thing in my talk. It's free to join the Climate Toolkit. There's no cost involved. I forgot to mention that, which I think is really critical.
Chiara? Okay.
I can answer for my small reality, because our museum is partially closed to earthquake damage since 12 years. So unfortunately, we can our public for the moment is only with the school, so elementary, middle, and now high school. And what I saw that is probably Italian people are like sleeping on this topic, and I think that what we should do is work a lot on education and knowledge to let the people really understand this topic and not just have the idea, yes, as you mentioned, climate change always exists, we don't have to take care about it. But if you allow them to really understand how the system goes, they start to take care. And when they saw all the negative impact by human, they are a little bit scared and says, oh my God, we really do this? Because it seems like they are not conscious about it. and especially when talk about digital device and how the impactful they have for the mining extraction and so on. So they start to think, okay, probably I don't buy a new phone because I don't need it, or we buy a recondition to be more sustainable in my life. So something like that. So if you point of knowledge, probably we can have a better future.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
A very small question for you, Mr., about the climate toolkit. Is it possible to imagine a biodiversity toolkit also, because biodiversity, climate change is very linked, and it will be also very interesting to develop such a, it's a very easy interface, I saw it at the moment, and yeah, to speak also about biodiversity loss. What do you think? Do you have ideas to develop other subjects like that?
That's a very good question. We do not have a plan to address that right now. I think there are other organizations that are addressing biodiversity. We certainly would like to link to them. I mean, there's no sense our reinventing what somebody else is already doing. But if you look on our website, you'll see that we link to like Project Drawdown and the UN Sustainability Goals. If there's an organization you could recommend that we should include, we will definitely do that, because that is a very critical issue and as a result of climate change. Yes.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. I would fully endorse the last comment. It'd be wonderful to have climate change and biodiversity together, as recommended by the BGCI in its recommendations. I don't know, you're very aware of the working together of museums, zoos, and botanical gardens. I just wanted to make one comment. In the 1980s, I was working with a colleague at Bath University who came up with the label of catastrophists and cornucopians to address people's belief systems in relation to environmental change. This was before full awareness of the climate tragedy. But I do think it's interesting to consider both religious beliefs and how people believe in human agency rather than God or fate or whatever, and where the belief systems spring from in the education systems. I think the toolkit is wonderful news as well. Thank you.
Just a comment.
That was just a comment.
Oh, okay. You gave it just a comment. Yeah. And any more question? Yeah. Okay. Oh,
yeah. I have a question, another question to Nicola and Sally. I was wondering how you handle the artworks created by the young people. Do they become part of the museum's collection? Have you discussed this with your colleagues? Because if we want to change the Natural History Museum, we should also change the collecting strategies. And it would be wonderful to know that this engagement by people could become an integrated and stable and sustainable part of the museum's memory and heritage.
Thank you. Yeah, so the young people's butterflies, they are all made out of waste paper from them, from us, and they are throughout the whole museum. And the installation, our director has very kindly said we thought it would be in for maybe a few months, and she said, no, keep it in for a year. We need to really see what the impact of this is, which has been fantastic. Quite what we're going to do with them at the end, I'm not entirely sure, it has to be said. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. But what we wanted, part of having that launch party, was to say that what you have done is as important as any other exhibition that we have in the museum. Whether it's from artists or whether it's from researchers in the department, what you've done, we value your voice just as much as we do anyone else that puts anything in our collection. And like I said, this is the beginning of a continued conversation with our visitors. So although it will physically come out, and I think actually we should get back to the young people and ask them what they think should happen to it, because we're still in touch with them. It's not the end. We will continue to have conversations with them, with other young people, about climate.
Just thinking it's a really important point in our history, and so we'll have conversations with our archivists about how to carefully preserve that history.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one simple question. Those contributors all came from Western countries, and the topic is how to engage people from all over the world. So my question is there do you have any idea how to engage people from different worlds? Probably the toolkit is one solution. And if you have other idea, please give us something. Oh, please.
We do have some other countries from other parts of the not Western world that are part of the toolkit right now, and we will continue to try to expand that. And as more and more people from or institutions from different countries join, obviously there are different issues that are important to them based on their cultures or where they're located, and we'll want to make sure that we listen to them and hear what should we be including in the toolkit that would make it more relevant for who they are and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Thank you. How about other people? No?
If I can add, in my PhD project, I identify a gap in the literature in the museological study that are more focused on Western perspective. And when I start studying my first year, I'm wondering, where is Asian country? Where is another perspective of it? So I decided to do my mobility period as a YABE-san, well known in Japan, Taiwan with FEDRA, and also in Singapore. Try to investigate the different perception of how they communicate nature, because in Western country there is more the idea of more anthropocentric, let's say, of human as something different from nature, and going to the other part of the world, you see this assimilation with nature, that you are part of nature. And when you visit their museum, I suggest to everyone to go there because they are beautiful. The communication is completely different, and you really feel to be part of nature when you see the exhibition of the specimen, and also when you read the label of the description of each skeleton or whatever it is, you can feel that all the ecosystem, human is part of ecosystem and not is something different. So I think that the incrementing in the literature of also the Asian perspective is quite important. Also, as I discussed with Jade before, also Indian perspective and so on, to integrate and have more than only Western perspective on this topic.
Okay, thank you very much. No more question? Okay, we are 15 minutes ahead of schedule. We are very lucky. So please move to,
May I make some
announcement. Okay, please.
Thank you for the speakers. Maybe let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Before we move to raise our blood sugar, I have some housekeeping message. So we will have a Natural History Museum tour today after the speaking sessions, and on Friday we will have Nantes museum tours. And because we have physical participants less than 60 people, so everybody is given the chance to visit both in the morning and in the afternoon. But in the registration sheet, you were only given one opportunity. So I just email you, if you've given the right email, to register for the other session. So since we have a elongated tea break or coffee break, you may do that during the tea break, coffee break, to register for the second session of the museum tour on Friday. And thank you. Our coffee break will. Well, the clock says 3 to 3:15, but I think it would be great if we come back around 3:10. Okay, thank you very much.